Now, here is I'd like to share a thought with you.
Yeah.
And then I'd like your feedback on this.
Sure, go ahead.
My thought is that, yes, the 1%, the so-called 1%, may not be paying the percentage of taxes that they should be paying. I believe Warren Buffett kind of agrees with that. There are other super rich individuals who kind of agree with that. But my sense is, should we not be focusing instead on the bottom 10% in their relationship to the rest of us?
That's a good question. The bottom 10%, okay, the totally impoverished, with no hope of getting out of being impoverished. When you're stuck in that cycle, you can't get out. There's no amount of work that's going to get you there either. Yeah, we need to focus on their solutions. The real solution is to start taxing not the individuals who constitute the 1%, although they should be paying 65% taxes like us. It's the corporations. The Bank of Canada or the Royal Bank doesn't pay taxes.
And what about people?
And subsidies. Okay, subsidies, oil subsidies for major corporations. We're looking at a corporation that doesn't require a subsidy to make more profit, that gets money, and then those bottom 10% don't get services.
So
a diversion.
Should we not then be thinking of inequality not in relationship to the 1%, but in relationship to the norm, which is me, you, and the other people in Canada, most of us who, in terms of our average family income, are making $60,000 a year. I'm thinking also in terms of, let's say, hockey players, musicians, artists, and so on, who are making millions of dollars every year. Should we not be focusing on a question of inequality in relationship to them rather than to the 1%?
That's a really good question. The statistics, okay, 85% of us work for small business. Most people don't know that. The real driver in the Canadian economy is small business. They get hardly any subsidies compared to those in big business, okay? Especially when you get higher up the food chain, okay? That's where more of the money is diverted to, okay? So in the big picture, we have enough money for prosperity for all of Canada, 10 times over. We could start shipping in refugees from third world countries en masse if we diverted our money away from the top 1% back into the people that are supporting them. And that would be the solution. I understand starting to focus on individuals, like we want the rich to pay as much taxes as us. Yeah, we appreciate that.
Because when I think of it, comparatively speaking, I'm a fabulously wealthy person compared to someone in the bottom 10%.
Absolutely.
Or someone in a third world country in Mexico.
Exactly.
Yeah. Compared to them, we live in wonderland.
And then when I think of maybe somebody who is a top-notch hockey player or musician or actor, I mean, they are, when I compare myself to them, they are much wealthier than I am.
One of the
so
problems,
should we not get them, or people like me, for instance, and you guys who have jobs, to pay, should we not have that comparison of inequality to us rather than to that 1%, because they're so far removed from us in many ways in terms of the amount of money they make, and there is just only a few hundred people, basically, who are at that level.
As far as show business is concerned, or major sports, any of those top-ranking people in the corporate media, okay, manufactured stars like Nickelback and stuff like that, yep, they should be paying their taxes just as much as us, 65% of their income, not their profit. But once again, that's a diversion away. We're talking about individuals and not the massive inequality that is spent on corporations, okay? Corporations, banks in particular, that do not pay taxes are the ones who should be bearing the burden of social change. They should be paying their fair share. And then when you look at fractional reserve lending and the way that corporate banks that are private, for-profit banks manufacture money out of nothing, through fractional reserve lending, you start to put two and two together on why the imbalance has occurred. They print money from nothing, they buy everything of value, and then they only attribute the wealth to themselves. And this is what's happening at a corporate level. So we seem to focus as a society on those people that we think are at the top of the pyramid. Okay, and we think that if you're a rock star, Nickelback is the top of the pyramid. If you're in Forbes magazine, you're listening to Donald Trump or all of those individuals. Those aren't important individuals. The individuals that are important are the banks that are behind them. They're the ones who are financing the inequality.
Okay. I have a couple more questions to ask you. Basically, one of the things that I've noticed in my years is that movements over time rise and fall. They rise up for a time, then they fall. Do you see this happening to Occupy Green or the whole Occupy movement?
We have a marathon mentality.
Yeah.
We're in it for the long run because it's far too important an issue.
Yeah. Everyone seems to focus on, oh, well, not so many numbers showed up in City Park, or, you know, you see the same dozen people out there all the time. I see that in political parties. If you go into a political party, you'll find out there's only 4 or 5 people that are really there 100% of the time. They have their huge rallies to make them look like they have large numbers, but there's a very small group of people. I come from a church background, and the people who actually run a church are a very small number of people, but they represent a very large number of people who come out and are expected to lead in that way. That's the way that we're working on it. There are a lot of people who jumped on the bandwagon right away. You're used to that, okay?
Yeah.
Something gets popular and people jump on the bandwagon. I never counted those people.
Tell me, is the Occupy movement morphing into something different? I asked that question because I notice that the focus is not as heavy on the gap between the 99 and the 1, but now it's flowing into things like energy and to climate change and to genetically modified foods and so on. When I see that happening, I wonder if the movement is becoming too diffuse and too kind of spread out and losing its focus and so on.
That's morphing. The movement is morphing because it's been forced to. And I often look at this like the Jewish diaspora. When the Jewish powers got too powerful, they got dispersed through Europe. And this is what happened with Occupies all across the nation, all across the world. They've been forced to disperse. They've been taken from their ground on which they formed a networking base and forced to disperse into the community. Therefore, now we've got all of these people seated in community, forced underground, and vilified by the corporate media. Instead of going away, they're networking and they're getting stronger, and even more initiatives are coming out of it. But now we have the internet driving it, whereas it was spoken word and print material that drove the previous revolutions that happened in society. Now we have the internet that's keeping people together and networking us with all kinds of occupies across the continent. You know, English-speaking occupies, I'm in touch with occupies all the way across Europe who are telling me what they're doing. A collective consciousness has been forced to form out of the Occupy diaspora that's occurring right now. And that collective consciousness is going to come back far more powerful. And I think that the spring that you're going to see coming up here, it's going to be a bit of a surprise for everyone.
So you don't see the movement losing steam, you see it morphing, evolving, and here for the long haul.
Yeah, and you're also saying that we seem to be focusing on a lot of different issues. Well, that's because a lot more people are becoming aware of these issues. Genetically modified foods are a huge menace to society. It's a huge menace to our farming community. Same with the Safe Streets and Communities Act, where all the statistics show that locking people up for mandatory amounts of time makes your streets and communities less safe.
So in short, it sounds like the movement is evolving into, let's say, a global group that is now going to address anything that is unequal, unfair and unjust?
You're looking at what I talk quite extensively about is a paradigm shift. That this group is going to educate the general public, and those people with strong family values, strong conservative values, not talking about the political party, but talking about the mentality of the injustice that's occurred in the way that people are blind to how that is affecting them. Canada used to have a social safety net that used to protect us from people who have to steal to live. That safety net is gone. There are no more free checks. There are 1% homelessness in Canada that can be solved immediately. We have the money to solve this problem right now. And so what's going to occur is that this whole movement on a worldwide basis is going to morph into a higher consciousness of social values, where those people who are truly family and society oriented, who are what I like to call the proud rule keepers, will stop maintaining the rules that don't work, and will start taking responsibility by having compassion and justice being the primary rule, as opposed to greed and dishonesty, which seems to be the primary rule that runs government and banks right now.
Finally,
Excuse me.
what do you hope will be the legacy that Occupy Kelowna will leave? How do you wish to be remembered 5, 10, 20 years down?
I wish, first of all, I don't want to be remembered personally, but I wanted to remember the movement. I want it to be the canary in the coal mine. I want it to be that thing, that one signifying moment that showed the history books of what people are capable of doing now. The legacy of Occupy Kelowna, I want that to be a show of strength and a show of character. That people would remember that intellectual people, average people, stood up, stood their ground, and were informed that changes can be made at a municipal level that aren't being made right now. Despite the rhetoric that's heard out of City Hall, despite all their best intentions, tonight, 1,500 people sleep in the cold. Tomorrow, they wake up without a meal. Our legacy is that we informed people and that we were part of a global movement. I think that's it. But I'm not, you know what? The legacy would be what? 10 times more members.
And we made a difference.
Hey? Yeah.
That we made a difference, and we really did help steer the world onto the path of caring about each other, regaining our humanity and our compassion for each other.
Yeah, to getting back to real human Canadian values. If we steered people in that direction. But often what I say is if I've inspired one person, or if I've spoken for one person who wasn't spoken for, not me myself personally, but the movement that's going on, that we have succeeded. So a legacy of success.
Thank you very much.
Thank
It was very interesting, and I wish you all well.
Thank you very much.